Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into someone whose life seems almost tailor-made for public consumption, Peter Michael Davidson.
Yeah, Pete Davidson, comedian, actor, writer, and just this massive public figure. It's quite a mix.
It really is. And his fame isn't just from his comedy, right? It's this blend of really personal, almost raw stand-up and these incredibly high-profile relationships.
Exactly. That's what makes him such a fascinating subject for this kind of analysis.
Yeah.
He's built this career being incredibly open while living a life that's constantly under the media microscope.
So our goal here, for you listening, is to kind of peel back those layers, go beyond the headlines. The gossip bill will touch on it, obviously.
Nothing much have to.
Right. But we want to understand the core elements, his life, his career, that unique comedic voice he has.
We've got a lot to work with. We're pulling together info on everything, his Staten Island roots, the whole Saturday Night Live era, his health battles, which he's been very open about.
And now this shift into movies, even producing, it's quite an arc.
It really paints a picture of maybe the modern celebrity, someone who uses vulnerability as their brand. He feels accessible, relatable, even when he's, dating Kim Kardashian or whoever.
He makes chaos seem normal somehow.
Or at least comfortable, yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Staten Island. Born November 16th, 1993.
And you really can't talk about his beginnings without talking about the defining trauma of his childhood.
Yeah, the loss of his father.
Absolutely central. His dad, Scott Matthew Davidson, was a New York City firefighter, ladder 118.
And he died in service during the 9/11 attacks.
That's right. The sources mention he and his unit were last seen going into the Marriott World Trade Center right before it collapsed. Just devastating.
And Pete was only 7 years old. The impact of that. It's hard to fathom, especially something so public.
He's called it overwhelming, and you see the fallout almost immediately in his childhood. It wasn't just sadness, it manifested in really concerning ways.
Like how he acted out in school.
Yeah, acting out, but also physically. He talked about ripping his own hair out.
Until he was bald.
Wow.
Dude.
It's such a clear, heartbreaking sign of just intense anxiety, trauma response kicking in at a really young age.
And it feels like that inability to process, that powerlessness he must have felt, that becomes the engine for his comedy later on.
It really does. He weaponizes it in a way. But before comedy, he had this fairly typical New York upbringing in some ways, raised Catholic.
But a mix of backgrounds, right? Jewish, German, Irish, Italian.
Yeah, a real melting pot. And his school life reflected that early chaos, too. He went to a few different high schools.
Finally graduated from Xaverian High in 2011, then a brief stint in college.
Very brief. 1 semester at St. Francis College, then he dropped out. It seems pretty clear that the traditional path just wasn't going to work for him.
Because he'd already found something else. Comedy.
And the story of how he started is kind of perfect, Pete Davidson.
Bowling alley dare.
Exactly. 16 years old, Staten Island bowling alley. Friends dared him to get up on stage. One of those friends, interestingly, was Matthew Festa, who went on to play Major League Baseball.
No way. So just pure impulse.
Seems like it. Low stakes, high challenge. And that was it.
And things moved pretty fast after that.
Yeah.
By 2013, 2014, he's already getting TV gigs.
Yeah, mostly on MTV at first. Shows like Philosophy, Guy Code.
Wasn't he on Wild and Out, too?
He was multiple times, 6 appearances, the sources say, which is great training, right? Improv, working on camera.
Definitely. And he did some scripted stuff, too, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
And even an unaired pilot for Fox, Sober Companion, back in 2014. So he was building this resume, getting noticed.
Setting himself up for the big one.
The absolute game changer. Saturday Night Live.
Okay, let's shift gears then. Talk about the SNL breakthrough and how that shaped his whole comedic approach.
Joining SNL in September 2014 for season 40. I mean, that's huge for any comedian.
And he was so young, 20 years old.
Yeah, one of the youngest ever cast members, and significantly, the first one born in the 1990s. He was literally the new generation walking in.
But how he got the audition, it wasn't exactly walking in off the street.
No, not at all. It was a connection. Bill Hader.
Ah, right. From the movie Trainwreck.
Exactly. Davidson had a small part in it, filmed in 2014, released 2015. Hader was in it too. Saw something in Davidson, that raw, kind of awkward energy, the talent beneath it.
And Hader just called Lorne Michaels?
Pretty much. Recommended him directly. That's a massive endorsement. It's that classic right place, right time, plus talent story.
And once he was on the show, his style was noticeable right away.
Yeah.
Playing with that youth, that almost indifference sometimes.
You nailed it with indifference. Look at Chad.
Oh, Chad. The ultimate slacker character.
Right. Okay. to absolutely everything, no matter how insane the situation. It was so minimal, but it hit a nerve, especially with younger viewers. That kind of Gen Z apathy personified.
And he wasn't afraid to get weird or uncomfortable either, like that sketch with The Rock.
Oh, yeah, the Indiana Jones poison-sucking sketch. That definitely pushed some buttons.
It started like a classic adventure movie parody.
And then just descended into this bizarre homoerotic mutual poison-sucking thing, ending in, well, a 69 position.
It was a signal, wasn't it? That he and maybe that newer cast were willing to go to some strange places for a laugh, make people squirm a bit.
Definitely. He stayed for 8 seasons, which is a long run.
But towards the end, season 47, he was missing quite a bit.
Yeah, there were noticeable absences. And then the official announcement came just before the season finale in May 2022. But those 8 years really forged his public image.
And cemented that comedy style we keep talking about, the brutal honesty.
Yeah, let's dig into that philosophy, because it really is what sets him apart.
It's built on just radical self-exposure, isn't it? Using his own life, warts and all, as the material.
Totally. It's observational, it's dark, sometimes surreal, but the core is confession. Critics have called it like a series of brutal truths and vulgar confessions.
And then the topics: awkwardness, drugs, sex, his mental health. Nothing seems off limits.
Nothing. Especially, and this is the really unique part, the death of his father.
Which is just incredibly sensitive territory. Most comics might allude to trauma, but he tackles it head on, puts it in punchlines.
He does, and he's actually explained why. He said that loss made him feel powerless as a kid.
Right.
And making jokes about it, turning that tragedy into comedy, it's his way of taking the power back. It's catharsis for him.
A very public form of catharsis.
Extremely public, and you could argue monetized catharsis.
That's the tension, isn't it? Is it therapy or is it commerce? Or both?
I think for the audience, it reads as authenticity. That's the key. When he's that vulnerable, it kind of gives permission for everyone else to laugh at their own uncomfortable truths. It's relatable, even at its snorkest.
And that approach led to stand-up specials.
3 main ones we should mention. Pete Davidson, SMD back in 2016, then Alive from New York in 2020, and Turbo Fonzarelli just this year, 2024.
But maybe the moment that really defined his nothing is off limits approach was the Justin Bieber roast.
Oh, the 2015 Comedy Central roast, yes. That set was legendarily edgy.
Because of that joke.
The Soul Plane joke, yeah. Aimed at Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart, who are in the movie.
Remind us of the line.
He said, referring to the movie Soul Plane, that it was the worst experience of my life involving a plane, and then directly connected it to his father dying on 9/11.
It's just breathtakingly dark. But it works, because he's the one saying it about his trauma.
Precisely. He owns the pain, so he gets to make the joke. It signals nothing is sacred, and people noticed. He landed on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2016. The recognition came fast.
That commitment to putting everything out there, it becomes even more complex when you layer in his actual health struggles,
Yeah.
which are deeply tied to his comedy.
Absolutely critical context. And he's been incredibly open here, too. First, physically, he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when he was about 17 or 18.
Which is a serious chronic inflammatory bowel condition. Painful, requires ongoing management.
Right. He gets intravenous biologic therapy for it. And he initially used marijuana, partly for pain management with the Crohn's, partly recreationally.
Then came the sobriety announcement in 2017.
March 2017, he said he was sober for the first time in 8 years, quit drugs.
But then he kind of revised that story later, didn't he? On Mark Maron's podcast.
He did, and this is really important. He went on WTF and basically said, look, I thought my problems, the emotional stuff, the impulsivity, were because of the weed.
But it wasn't just the marijuana.
No. He revealed he'd been newly diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD. And he realized that was the underlying cause of a lot of the issues he'd blamed on pot.
Wow. That's a huge thing to share publicly. BPD carries a lot of stigma. It involves intense mood swings, trouble with relationships, impulsivity.
It maps pretty closely to his public persona, honestly. And he said he's been in treatment for it since the diagnosis.
And being so open about BPD, it further cemented that brand of radical honesty, didn't it? Made him seem even more relatable, battling these real demons.
Definitely. It normalized talking about a really complex mental health condition for a huge audience.
But that vulnerability also comes with periods of real public crisis. Like in December 2018.
Yeah, that was scary. He posted some really concerning stuff on Instagram, hinting at suicidal thoughts, then deleted his account.
And the police got involved.
NYPD did a wellness check because people were genuinely worried. It became this big public event. Even Ariana Grande, his recent ex-fiancée at the time, expressed concern online.
Yet, almost immediately, he filters that experience through comedy, too.
It's his default setting. Just a few weeks later, January 2019, he's on Weekend Update with John Mulaney, making jokes about the incident, turning the scary into satire.
It's a pattern. Process trauma through performance.
Exactly. And now we're seeing this maybe desire for a change, a clean slate, reflected even in his appearance, the tattoos.
Right. He had so many. Like, hundreds.
Around 200, the sources say, often very specific, marking moments or relationships, kind of a walking diary.
And now he's getting them removed?
Most of them. By 2025, aiming to keep just a couple, he said it himself. He wants a clean slate. He's trying to be an adult.
Removing the visual record of the chaos, that's a powerful symbolic move.
It really is a statement about wanting to move into a different phase.
But of course, the public focus rarely stays on his tattoos or his psyche for long. It snaps right back to his relationships.
Which is, let's be honest, the engine driving a huge amount of the media attention around him.
It's undeniable. His dating life is a spectacle. He often dates women who are vastly more famous, at least initially.
Which just catapults his own fame. It started more within his world comedian Carly Aquilino than Cassie David, Larry David's daughter, from 2016 to 2018.
And then came the explosion. Ariana Grande. 2018.
That was the relationship that took him from SNL guy to global tabloid fixture. It was incredibly fast and intense.
He started dating in May, engaged by June.
Yeah, a whirlwind engagement. The scrutiny was unbelievable, and then it ended just as quickly in October 2018.
And the context around the breakup was so heavy, too, with Mac Miller's tragic death happening shortly before.
Right. That added this layer of public grief and pressure onto an already hyper-visible split. It became more than just celebrity gossip.
But the cultural impact lingered. She wrote songs about him.
Yeah, the track, literally titled Pete Davidson, and of course the massive hit, Thank You Next.
Even almost got married. And for Pete, I'm so thankful. That line was everywhere.
It was remarkably gracious. And beyond the music, that relationship is largely credited with popularizing the term.
Big dick energy, BDE.
Right.
BDE, which became this weird cultural shorthand for his specific brand of laid-back, confident charm that didn't fit the usual Hollywood mold.
It totally set the stage for what came next. A series of very public, often shorter-term romances.
Kept him constantly in the headlines. Kate Beckinsale was a big one, mostly because of the age gap.
She's 20 years older, right? And he actually used the media frenzy about that on SNL.
He did. Turned it right back around. He basically said, why is everyone freaking out about my age gap?
When older guys date much younger women all the time.
Exactly. He called out Leonardo DiCaprio, Larry King, even Donald Trump by name. Classic Davidson move. Absorb the hit, then deflect with an observation about media hypocrisy. Who else was in that phase? Margaret Qualley.
Yep, briefly.
Yeah.
Then model Kaya Gerber. And Phoebe Dynevor from Bridgerton. That ended apparently due to distance.
And then came Kim Kardashian, which brought a whole new level of chaos.
Unprecedented levels.
Yeah.
It started after she hosted SNL in October 2021. They did that sketch together.
The Aladdin and Jasmine kiss.
Right. And they started dating officially in November 2021. But the story of their relationship is almost inseparable from the conflict with her ex, Kanye West.
Oh, man, that was intense and very public.
It was relentless. Kanye targeted Davidson constantly on social media, calling him names. Skeet, dickhead, and that bizarre Hillary Clinton's ex-boyfriend insult.
Because Pete has that Hillary tattoo. It's just layers of surreal celebrity feud.
And Kanye put it in his music, too. The track Easy had the line about wanting to beat Pete Davidson's ass.
And the music video, the claymation figure of Pete being buried alive, that was disturbing.
Deeply disturbing. It was like a public digital harassment campaign.
How did Pete handle it? He seemed pretty quiet through most of it.
Mostly silent, yeah. Which weirdly worked in his favor. By not engaging much publicly, he almost came across as the more mature one in the situation. The chaos swirled around him, but he didn't seem to add to it.
And that relationship lasted about 9 months. They split in August 2022.
Correct. Since then, the pace has maybe slowed slightly, but the pattern continues. He dated Chase Suey Wonders.
Who he met on a film set, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And she was in his show Bupkis, too.
Right. Then actress Madeline Klein for a while.
This brings us right up to the present. And maybe the biggest shift yet in his personal life, Elsie Hewitt.
Model and actress Elsie Hewitt. They started dating around March 2025, made their red carpet debut in May, moved in together. Things moved quickly.
But the really big news dropped in July 2025.
Yeah. Hewitt announced on Instagram they're expecting their first child.
Wow, that changes everything. Fatherhood for Pete Davidson.
It's a massive turning point. The guy whose persona is built on this kind of arrested development, this chaotic energy, now facing the reality of being a dad. You have to wonder how that reshapes the comedian, the confessor.
We'll definitely circle back to that. But first, let's talk about how he actually leveraged that SNL fame and persona into a legitimate movie career. It's been pretty successful.
Surprisingly robust, yeah. And often, the roles feel like extensions of him. The absolute key project here is The King of Staten Island.
The 2020 film with Judd Apatow directing. That was semi-autobiographical, right?
Deeply. He co-wrote it, starred as Scott Carlin, a character grappling with the exact same core trauma. Firefighter, father lost on 9/11, struggles with motivation, mental health.
It felt like therapy on screen.
It really did, like a 2+ hour processing session, but it worked critically, got him award nominations, it showed his personal story had weight, could carry a major film.
And beyond that personal project, he's popped up in some huge franchises, usually in smaller, specific kinds of roles.
Yeah, it's interesting how he's used often the lovable screw-up, the comic relief, sometimes the guy who gets killed off quickly, like Blackbird in The Suicide Squad.
Right. Dies almost immediately.
And 2023 was huge for cameos. He was Fleckdick in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Bowie in Fast X, the voice of Mirage in Transformers, Rise of the Beasts.
He's suddenly everywhere in these blockbusters.
Yeah.
Shows real mainstream reach beyond comedy fans.
He even voiced Marmaduke the dog in 2022.
Marmaduke. Okay. But when he tried to translate his life directly into a TV series again with Bupkis, the reaction was more mixed.
Bupkis, yeah. The Peacock series from 2023. He starred, co-wrote, heavily fictionalized version of his life again.
And critics found it a bit derivative.
Some did. The Guardian called it messy, compared it to shows like Louis, Atlanta, even Entourage, which are tough comparisons.
So the idea of a messy comedian dealing with fame maybe felt less fresh in that format.
Essentially. While his life is unique, the structure of that show wasn't groundbreaking, and it's telling that even though it got renewed for season 2,
Walk away.
He chose not to move forward, which again seems to fit this narrative he's building about wanting control, maybe wanting that clean slate, not just being locked into retelling the same stories.
It feels like a conscious choice to manage his own narrative more carefully now.
Absolutely. And speaking of unconventional choices and blurred lines, some of his off-screen ventures are pretty wild.
Okay, you have to start with the ferry. The Staten Island ferry.
It's peak absurdity, isn't it? He and Colin Jost, his SNL buddy, actually bought a decommissioned Staten Island ferry boat in 2023.
What were they planning to do with it? A comedy club?
That was the rumor, or maybe an art space. Vague plans, but then it actually got used in a horror movie called Screamboat.
Of course it did. It's just perfect Pete Davidson logic. Buy a ferry, it ends up in a horror movie.
It exemplifies that kind of casual, almost accidental engagement with massive, weird projects.
And he almost went to space.
Almost. He was scheduled to be an honorary guest on a Blue Origin flight, NS-20, in March 2022.
What happened?
The flight got rescheduled, and then the announcement came that he was no longer able to join. He missed becoming astronaut Pete by that much.
Which would have just been another level of strange fame.
Totally. And then there are moments where the impulsivity has real-world impacts, like the car crash in March 2023.
Right. He crashed into a house.
Right.
Late at night. No one hurt, thankfully.
No injuries, thankfully. But he was charged with misdemeanor reckless driving.
And he had consequences for that.
Yeah, he ended up agreeing to community service, 50 hours and 12 hours of traffic school. So, public actions, public accountability, life isn't just material.
Well, speaking of testing boundaries and accountability, his comedy is definitely cross lines sometimes. Let's talk controversies.
It's inevitable with his style, right? Insult comedy, black comedy, it pushes buttons. One of the biggest backlashes was over the R. Kelly joke in 2019.
On SNL, comparing the Catholic Church to supporting R. Kelly.
Specifically, he said, "I don't really see the difference, except for one's music is significantly better."
Oof. And the timing was crucial there.
Extremely. It came right after the Diocese of Brooklyn had settled major sex abuse cases for millions, $27.5 million in 2018.
So the church was understandably outraged.
The diocese called it disgraceful, demanded an apology. It hit a very raw nerve, connecting satire to real, profound suffering and institutional failure.
Then there was the Dan Crenshaw incident, mocking a politician's war wound.
That was 2018, Weekend Update again. He went after Dan Crenshaw, who was then a Republican candidate for Congress. Crenshaw wears an eye patch from an injury in Afghanistan.
And Davidson compared him to
A hitman in a porno movie. And then added that dismissive line, "I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in war," or whatever.
that whatever really landed badly.
Terribly. The backlash was instant and bipartisan. You just don't mock a veteran's combat injury like that.
But the way they handled it was kind of remarkable.
It was masterful, really. The next week on SNL, Davidson didn't just give a statement. He brought Dan Crenshaw out with him.
Right, on the show.
Crenshaw accepted the apology, got in a few jokes at Pete's expense, but then pivoted. He used the moment to talk about veterans, about unity, about remembering sacrifice.
It turned this really ugly moment into something surprisingly constructive and let Pete take responsibility in a very public way.
Exactly. It showed a capacity for handling criticism when he genuinely crossed a line. And it's worth noting, his own politics are pretty clear.
Liberal, yeah. Supported Hillary Clinton got the tattoo, supported Biden.
Right. So the Crenshaw apology was notable because it showed he could engage respectfully even across that political divide when the issue warranted it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The trauma, the comedy, the health, the relationships, the career moves, the controversies. Let's try to synthesize this. What's the core takeaway about Pete Davidson?
I think it comes back to that transparency. His willingness to put everything out there, the grief over his dad, the BPD, the Crohn's, the messy relationships that is the brand.
He connects because of the flaws, not despite them.
Precisely. He's the ultimate confessional comedian. He turns his personal struggles into relatable, funny, sometimes shocking content, and it works.
And he's managed to build a serious, multifaceted career out of it. From youngest SNL guy to movie star, producer.
And now, soon-to-be father. That's the big unknown variable.
Right. Because everything we know about him suggests this constant drive towards a clean slate now. Removing tattoos, quitting Bupkis, settling down, having a kid.
It seems like a genuine desire for maturity, for stability, which feels almost antithetical to the chaotic energy that fueled his rise.
So that really is the big question for him, and maybe for you listening to consider. Can he maintain that confessional style, that vulnerability that people connect with, if his life genuinely becomes more stable?
Or does the chaos just shift? Will fatherhood, with all its inherent messiness and challenges, simply become the new raw material for his comedy?
Will we get routines about changing diapers and sleep deprivation instead of dating drama?
It's entirely possible. It will be fascinating to see how this guy who built a career on processing past trauma and current chaos navigates this next phase, balancing a desire for a quiet life with a public persona built on exposure.
That evolution from the kid joking about his dad's death to a man about to become a dad himself, that's the next chapter we'll all be watching.
No doubt. It's the most significant turn in the Pete Davidson story yet.
And that concludes our deep dive for today. Hopefully this gives you a much richer picture of the person behind all those headlines.